No, that's the thing on that. They don't. Um, it's like 2.2 is capable of built-in tethering, and there were tethering apps, which of course
Mm-hmm.
they got banned from the store. And there is a way to get them even if you're in the banned areas. Basically, you boot your phone without the SIM card in it.
Right. Well, we had tethering on the iPhone when we did jailbreaking as well, and that was just violating the legal policy
Right.
within Apple and AT&T. It's not. I'm just saying that if the carrier decided that they weren't going to support something, they have quite a lot of power to
Yeah, it's like
bring a lot.
we need to get back into Apple here in a minute, but one more thing to say on that. It's like no, it's like 2.2 support on Android supports built-in Wi-Fi hotspot.
Mhm.
However, if you'll notice, that is in no phone stocked by the carriers, and I don't think it's ever going to be. It's like the Sprint Evo is going to get 2.2, but Sprint wants you to buy the extra, what is it, $30 a month tethering app that they've made for Android. I guarantee you, when that update gets pushed through, that feature is going to have been removed in the same way the unsupported apps API feature was removed from the backflip on AT&T. It's like
Yeah,
Android can do this, but the carriers aren't going to allow it unless they have to compete with a device that can.
that's right. I mean, you hit it on the nail in one of your videos when you're expressing your concerns of how Android is becoming or being allowed to become very OEM specific, and then by doing that, basically preventing a lot of the root features that Google may have envisioned. And as you're saying now, just get blocked within the backflip and things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and I mean, you can't be open and prevent others from adding the API and so on and so forth. And really, the only way to enforce that is to give the consumer a choice, where they go, okay, well, if you want to sell me crap, I'm going to go buy the good stuff. And educated consumers will make that choice every time. And grandma will get screwed. Okay. Okay, let's get back into Apple here, anyways. What's your personal opinion on this? I'm honestly wondering if Apple isn't hurting themselves a little here, because they've had three really big recent snafus, two of which have gotten media attention. It's like the fact that the iPad Wi-Fi didn't work kind of just went completely under the radar. It made the tech blogs, but nobody else really cared. The news didn't care. The news was in love with the iPad. This is Apple. Apple is magical. We love Apple. Then the iPhone came out. And all of a sudden the news doesn't love Apple anymore.
Well, in 2007, Apple got a lot of praise for being cool, but the immediately and myself being a developer for Apple originally, Steve Jobs and at the keynotes, Apple will. I'll give you an example. The 2007 first iPhone's released, and the apps that were going to be released are nothing but through Safari. So all of us developers are scratching our head and going, "Huh?
Yeah. Well, it's like I think you were the one who actually asked me like for the links on that, because that was actually right where jailbreaking started. People were like, "This is a good device. We want to do stuff with it. Screw Steve Jobs."
Zach, and there is a keynote where he's going over the whole iPhone and how magical it is and all this other stuff, and being all the apps going through Safari, how wonderful. And then they had to backtrack and then allow native support. And then, well, we're not going to necessarily allow third parties. Well, then they backtracked on that and allowed third parties. And so then we come up to...
Which I think is actually, what's ironic about that is I think that's the most profitable division of Apple to date.
They're not going to... LiveScript and MonoTouch and Unity, all of these third-party cross-compiler or cross-interpreters will program for the iPhone, for Android, what have you. And of recent, because of the whole Adobe Flash thing, I just wish Apple would have just come out and said, because I'm on Apple's side and saying, Adobe, you took for freaking ever to get a viable mobile flash that we would like, within our threshold of battery consumption and video performance that we would like to see on our phones. And they promised, Apple, and then delayed it and delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And I think that
I'm wondering though on some of that, just like with the Creative Suite for the Mac itself, how much of that was because with the iPhone platform is a lot more, or now iOS is a lot more secretive than the Mac, but there were things that happened with the Mac platform and how it was developing that at one point Apple pulled the rug out from underneath Adobe, and that caused a delay.
Well, I have a video on that. The whole carbon issue is Forstall, who was the brains behind Leopard, then was moved to the iPhone, and he announced that you would have full Carbon 64-bit all the way up to the UI. So everybody on Carbon was fine with it. I actually have dev CD seeds that have all of the support libraries for a 64-bit Carbon, and that they were supported up until right before the keynote, which was in June, and then basically at that keynote they announced that there would not be any Carbon 64-bit support. So by that time, Adobe didn't have a whole lot of time to roll out a 64-bit product because their product was built in Carbon, and if they wanted to have 64-bit, they're going to have to go through Cocoa, and they're making their. I think they've released the 64-bit version.
Yeah, no, it's been addressed now. It was just one of those things. We can't completely redesign everything in 2 months, Steve. We can't do it, Steve. It takes time.
Yeah, I mean that was a big blow to a lot of. It wasn't just Adobe that we're looking for Carbon 64.
But for some reason, Adobe's the one that's being lynched for it, which is what I can never figure out.
Well, there's bloggers that are on both sides. I mean, I've read enough people that were also blaming Apple. I'm one of them that blames Apple. I mean, I witnessed it as a developer in what was going on. Now, on the iPhone, though, Adobe has admitted to being behind the curve. They admitted that they didn't see early enough the possibility of the mobile world that's exploding as fast as it did, and essentially did ignore calls from Apple when the first iPhone came out. A lot of people already said the iPhone in 2007 was going to fail and give up Apple. You know,
I don't think the iPad form factor is going to fail, but I'm wondering if it's going to have as long a dominant life as the iPhone. The iPhone has had a really long life, and it's still the predominant platform on the iPhone. I know that, but because of the stuff you're talking about, because everybody gets now that this is not this little sign, they're like, okay, Gene Roddenberry wasn't such a crazy person. We should maybe have faith in this stuff. So I'm not sure the iPad will experience the 3 years of prosperity that the iPhone did, because there's already devices coming out this Christmas that makes the iPad look a little dated. Never mind the ones coming out first, second quarter next year. Okay. It's one of those things. I'm surprised Apple only went as far as they did in that regard.
Right. Well, it's funny. That's exactly the pattern that has been occurring. The iPhone comes out. It gets the oohs and ahs, and then the naysayers. And then all of a sudden, a slew of phones come out that are more feature-rich. And then, like, the iPhone 3G comes out. Okay, so it has a little advanced time, and then a slew of other phones come out. What started to, though, happen is AT&T really, on their feature-controlled issues, really dragged the iPhone down, in my opinion. And the responsiveness for a lot of features, in my opinion, I think it took too long to come up with copy and paste. It took too long to get to multitasking or concurrency, to be more accurate. Yeah. And now they have front facing and all this other stuff, but the margin of which the iPhone jumped to is too small to where now every other phone takes a bigger leap.
Okay, we have to take a pause for a second.